The last survivor of the mountaineering disaster that killed 11 people has been rescued by helicopter from K2.
Disaster struck during the descent of a steep gully known as the bottleneck.
11 climbers died on the world's second highest peak after an avalanche swept some climbers away and stranded others.
It's a notoriously difficult ascent, and now the mountain has claimed more lives in one devastating expedition than ever before in its history.
The sun was shining, it was brilliant, still on the summit. But what happened on the way back, I still can't believe.
You couldn't have asked for a better day in a million years. And only on K2 does a perfect summit day become a deadly day.
You're leaving a battleground. You're losing a war.
We were all withering away. We were all slowly dying.
In June 2008, one of the teams heading for K2 was an international expedition consisting mainly of friends who had climbed together in the past.
What expedition is this?
It's K2 International Expedition.
Yeah, who else is there from international?
I am from Sweden. We are many from US. We are from Nepal, Australia. It's many countries.
The journey to K2 stretches from Skardu Airport in Pakistan onto the Karakoram Highway, the highest international paved road in the world. After many hours by jeep, the road ends in the town of Askol. From there, it is a long walk through deep valleys, narrow paths, and rocky hillsides. After 8 days of treacherous terrain, at the far northern end of Pakistan, close to the Chinese border, surrounded by some of the highest peaks in the world, lies K2.
When I saw K2 for the first time, I don't think I've ever been so scared and happy at the same time looking at a mountain. It's this creepy feeling between wanting something and trying to run away from something.
How's it look, Fred?
Wow and shit.
And holy son of a bitch.
It's such an imposing mountain. K2 always reminds me of a child's drawing of a mountain, just harsh and very pointy. It's imposing. It is really imposing and very, it was serene, but also very filled with fear. Actually, I mean, there was fear. It was real fear.
There are 6 main camps on the way to the K2 summit. When ascending the mountain, every climber has to acclimatize to the different altitudes due to the lower level of oxygen. The final push to the summit usually starts from Camp 4, leading through a technically difficult and notorious passage known as the bottleneck. From there, it is a 350-meter climb leading up to the summit.
There's a simplicity of life that you have when you're climbing, and that simplicity of life is you're really focused on, the basics of life: food, shelter, clothing, warmth, in your environment, what's around you. Being able to put everything else out of your mind and not focus on the distractions that happen in everyday life. And you're also focused on other people and your team members, because you really are trusting your life in other people's hands with every step you take. And the thing with climbing is, once you reach the top, once you reach this goal that you've planned for 6 months, 9 months, a year, you realize there's a bigger goal, which is to come down. At times, they're conflicting goals, because sometimes reaching the top means you might not come down. And so you got to weigh out which goal is more important to you. And so for me, I look at it as it's the epitome of goal setting and achievement. It's so stark and so clear and so absolute.
Ropes are pretty twisted, huh?
Yeah. I guess the reason why I climb is to explore a deeper sense of self. Embarking on any kind of climb tests me in so many different ways that I come away from the experience every time a changed individual. I'm tested physically, for sure. I'm tested mentally. And I'm also serving as a physician on the team. I'm tested professionally as well, taking care of members of our team or other teams. I guess it's that challenge of trying to dig deep within yourself, discover the best and the worst in you, and see how you come out of it.
How you feel?
Tired.
Yeah.
Really tired.
Arriving at Camp 2, the expedition gets a taste of the notorious, unpredictable weather systems on K2.
Weather's bad. We're going down from Camp 2 to base camp. There's not much we can do, and it's gonna deteriorate even worse. Wind's gonna pick up, so we wanna get the heck out of here before something really nasty happens.
Everybody talks about the rapid weather change that occurs on K2, and that's pretty much what happened. Weather could change on a dime. There isn't a lot of long, good stretches of weather high up on the mountain, and it makes it that much more dangerous because your visibility isn't as high, and you can't see rock fall, and you can't see ice fall, and if you're climbing in a whiteout.
I think that the weather patterns on K2 has its own will. Often on high altitude there's hurricane wind, and climbing in those conditions can be fatal.
I remember one avalanche that came down. It started in the morning. It sounded like somebody was blasting dynamite, like 50, right outside the tent. It felt like the ground shook. And so we all ran outside and we looked up.
Jesus Christ.
That was a little more substantial. Yeah, that whole piece that was hanging down there.
Yeah,
Dave.
it's gone.
It's really dangerous. There's no safe way to get up through here.
It made everything very, very poignant and very clear of what you needed to be aware of and being very concise about where you went up.
If you were up there about their Camp 2, you could easily get blown off.
Or it could trigger something.
Yeah, it could trigger something on
the other side.
Seeing that awesome power makes you think about other possibilities, how vulnerable you really are.
The other side.
Close to the foot of K2 lies a memorial to those who have perished climbing the mountain. While acclimatizing to the higher altitude, the team went to pay their respects.
It's only about an hour walk down from where our base camp was. And the Gilkey Memorial is a place that started when Art Gilkey died in 1953. After a heroic rescue carrying him down K2, he still died. And so they built a memorial.
Since then, lots of other memorials have been placed at this site, and it's a very somber environment when you go and visit this memorial. You're struck with how much loss has occurred in the quest to get to the top of this mountain.
Slovenian.
You read all these plates about people who've perished, who died on the mountain. You can read died on ascent, died on descent, died on descent, died on descent. People fall down hundreds of meters and their bodies are just scattered. On K2, you don't find dead bodies. You find parts of bodies.
You think really that's a leg?
Yes.
Sorry?
It's a
You're
leg
standing
right
close to a leg.
Yeah.
More down there.
Sorry?
There's more body parts down there.
Looks like it. I can't really tell.
So I'm sitting there and I'm staring out up at K2 going, this is where people are spending eternity looking out at their choice of climbing K2. It's a very grim reminder of what you're about to undertake. I actually ended up sitting down and just allowing myself to cry. And Eric and Fred were there with me. And I think that's where our bond really started to grow strong from the first point.
Wow.
Yeah. We've just arrived Camp 3, 7,400 meters. It's a beautiful day, very warm, maybe too warm.
As we were pushing up to Camp 3, we were very aware of the atmosphere and how there was so much less oxygen. It took so much more work to take every step. You quickly get short of breath and lightheaded. You can't deny that there's huge danger up there. Just historically, what that mountain has dealt over the years, you know that it's going to force you to dig down really deep. It's going to test you in every possible way.
In addition to Fredrik, Chris, and the others in the international team, there were a lot of other expeditions on the mountain this year. Among them were the married Norwegian couple, Rolf and Cecilia, who had attempted to reach the summit of K2 a couple of years before, without success. Back at K2 again, Rolf and Cecilia were now hoping to reach the summit together.
All right. Fantastic job. Way to go. Fantastic job.
Good job. finally here. Fantastic, eh? Such a relief.
Buddy.
Hey.
It seems like it should be shorter, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When I was halfway, I thought, probably soon there.
Yeah.
Just around
Just around the corner.
Just around the corner.
When you go up, your muscle tells you need to breathe or you have to stop.
Exactly.
But on the way down, it's so much easier and you don't breathe.
That's true too. And at night, it's the same thing. You know, if you go up to a high camp, have a bad night, wake up with that kind of foggy headache.
Yeah.
You know, it's because you just haven't been breathing as much.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
After having spent months on the mountain due to bad weather, some expeditions started to feel that time was running out. Good weather was expected in the coming days, which made it clear that a last summit push was at hand for many of the climbers.
We got together collectively, the various teams on the mountain, to talk about how we might work together on the summit push. This mostly had to do with dividing up fixed rope and fixing gear, ice screws, how we were going to all distribute this and put up the route above Camp 4.
We take 400 meters. We are still up.
Okay.
Then the Italians got 200 meters, very strong, very reliable, for the traverse. We had a good atmosphere all together, so we were really, really motivated to work together and just to finish this mountain, coming back in the base camp and then have a really nice party. We got 400 meters, lightweight and very strong. So when the Italians take 200 meters, you don't have to bring anything.
300 meter.
Yes, 200 is the traverse.
Okay.
We were all becoming a little bit anxious about the weather and whether we would have enough time to summit. Some of the groups actually had been on the mountain 3 or 4 weeks longer than we had. They were getting pretty tapped out with their resources, their patience. So we all felt like this was our last best chance to get to the top.
Then after we are working like a one team. Yeah?
Good, yes.
We are working like a one team. No Serbia, no Korean, no Dutch, no America. There is only one summit team from every group.
Yes. Of course, as a human being, you think that if you are with more people, that it's more safe because you work together and you have less workload, you know, and it's, you know, more chances to get to the summit. But actually, you know, it's just a matter of, you know, foolish yourself, because the more people there are, the more difficult or the more danger it is climbing the mountain.
More people than ever are going to be attempting the summit of K2 on a given day, and that could be a problem.
What do you say?
When so much money goes into an expedition to climb an 8,000-meter peak, the sponsors are ultimately seeking publicity. If there's tragedy involved, that captures headlines even more than if there's success. And you don't get famous for turning back on a big mountain. You know, headlines are made when you risk everything and lose everything, or when you risk everything and meet with success. The commercially driven aspect of mountaineering definitely played a role in K2.
We arrived at Camp 4, something like 7-7, 7-8, something like that. And tomorrow's gonna be a very tough day. The bottleneck looks scary. Shit. Okay.
We arrived at Camp 4 in the early afternoon. The sun was out, the winds were calm. The views over the Karakoram Range were absolutely stunning.
How you feel, Mr. Kim?
Yeah.
You good?
Yeah, good.
Yeah? Tomorrow, push for top. How you feel? I feel great.
Yeah?
Much better than I expected. How do you feel, Marco?
Ciao.
Good?
Yes.
Yeah?
His position, flag.
Yes?
For tomorrow. For
very good. Very good.
Finish.
Yeah.
There was just this amazing feeling of anticipation and elation at having reached Camp 4. I think we all felt that we were so fortunate to be in such an amazingly beautiful place, in such an incredible austere environment at that time.
In order to reach the summit, you have to pass a narrow couloir overhung by seracs called the bottleneck. Due to the high altitude, the risk of falling ice and the steepness, this stretch is a very dangerous part of the expedition. The bottleneck is located only 350 meters below the summit. On the morning of August 1st, 29 climbers started their push for the summit, and the so often unpredictable weather on K2 was for once on the same side as the expedition.
You couldn't have asked for a better day in a million years. It was perfect. There was no wind. The sun was out, bright, shining. You know, you would dream of having this summit day. But because it was so perfect, I think people stopped questioning themselves. The group decision-making applied more so than ever before. Of people were making the, well, you know what, it's a perfect day. Everybody's here. It's perfectly safe. What can go wrong?
But despite the perfect weather conditions, everything was not right. The first group of climbers had left 3 hours after schedule. They had spent valuable time looking for missing equipment. It was now clear that none of the teams would be able to climb down before dark.
We are on 7,900 meters, something like that. And this is one of my more disappointing days I had for a very long time. Total miscommunication when it comes to gear and who should bring it. We're short of rope, we're short of gear, and we are way back in time. We are really late. I don't know what we're gonna do.
All these things added together made it fairly obvious for us that things can go wrong and we don't want to be part of this.
Pretty disappointing coordination we thought was there. Not there at all.
There's not words to convey how crushed we were. You put so much effort into the climb up to that point. You've got so much invested. To be at a point where you have to turn the switch off and go down is such a difficult moment.
I had left a little bit before Eric and Fred, and so I had seen them turn around. And I'm looking at this group of people who are just, you know, they're not moving fast. It just doesn't feel like anybody's moving fast. It's just not working. The time doesn't look right. And I'm looking up and I'm saying, we're not going to get back down through the bottleneck by dark. And I don't think that's safe. I think we need to turn around. I'm looking up, I'm like, it's just not looking right. When I turned around, it felt horrible. It felt like I was making just the biggest mistake of my life.
The slow pace of the climbers pushing for the summit was becoming a problem for everyone.
There were a lot of inexperienced climbers, you know, and on the other hand, there were happily there were also a lot of experienced climbers, and the mix is not the biggest problem, but the quantity of climbers, you know, that is of course always a problem, because the longer the chain, you know, there is always one part in the chain who is exhausted or who makes a mistake or whatever.
But at this altitude, Even highly experienced climbers can suffer. This was the case for Rolf Meyer from the Norwegian expedition.
How are you?
Good. But not a great day today. A hard day for me today.
Yes.
It was not a good day.
You mean with a small accident or conditional?
Oh, some personal condition.
Yeah.
Down in Camp 4, Fredrik and Eric suddenly heard a horrific sound coming from the climbers ahead.
What's happening?
What do you see? Right in the bottleneck?
The bottom?
On the left, right?
On the, where? On the top left? Top left?
We just heard a scream, and we knew instantly that something really, really bad had happened.
We're trying to figure out what's just happened in the bottleneck here. We're to a stage here where, over 8,000 meters there at the bottleneck. And it doesn't take for much to go wrong to be catastrophic.
Okay, it's steering.
Yeah, steering, this is Eric, Camp 4. Do you know if there has been an accident? Over.
And here, and one out for certain guys, he's still down. But we see the down and his move over.
Is he in the rock?
We got a radio call from the bottleneck that there was a person had been falling at the fixed ropes while trying to go around and pass another member. It was Serbian climber, Sträng. He unclipped from the rope and passed Cecilia from Norway at the bottleneck and somehow slipped. He was just tumbling down longer than 200 meters.
I see up there, down.
Yeah.
The rock. Sträng, when he was falling, he was just, 3 meters away from me. We were on the rope and everybody was just beneath me and some climbers above me. And he was just left of the rope, and I don't know what he was doing, but the time I heard a scream, I was looking and I saw that he just, he slipped and he was just tumbled over. And it was a really stupid moment because he was so close that you were thinking, oh, hey, give me a hand, and he was gone.
Yeah, we can see a lone figure down in the rocks at the bottleneck.
He's moving.
He is moving over.
Sträng was still moving, and he probably was still alive.
In traverse?
Yeah.
The top traverse?
Yeah, Pemba is furthest to the left. Steering is down.
So Fred and I made the decision to climb up and see if we could help Sträng back down to Camp 4 safely. The decision to try and bring him back down to Camp 4 is something that we have to deal with the consequences of that.
Coming up to that spot, I see Iso from Serbia is dragging a person that is partially wrapped up. And then I understand that, okay, it's too late.
Sträng's body was wrapped in a red plastic cover. 4 other climbers were gathered around him, getting ready to bring him down.
So I get up there and they urge to bring him down to base camp, and I say that, hey, that's impossible. We can bring him down to Camp 4 if everyone's in for it and give him a worthy burial there, instead of just leaving him on the hillside like this. And that's what we start to organize to do.
So put this much faster. We enlarge those. With that rope there, no problem. And we auto here.
Okay.
The Serbians and Fredrik started to bring the body down. Fredrik put the camera in his pocket, but forgot to turn it off.
Let's see.
And so we are on 2 fronts, 2 here and 2 here. And the body's down here. And we're lowering him down. It's fairly steep here.
Guys, if you do fall, you release, okay? It's our lives too, okay? Yeah. Remember. Okay, slowly.
I just feel a huge load on my back.
Stop! Stop! Stop!
The Pakistani high altitude porter is falling into my back. And then he grabs the rope around my legs. And I can feel his entire tension of his body on my legs, plus the body from the Serbian dead climber. And some of the Serbians now on the left side is also losing their tension on the rope, which means that a lot of weight is put onto my legs, and I'm screaming out,
"Release the rope! Release the rope! Release the rope!"
And then he just loses the grip of the rope and start falling down.
Stop! Body! Jesus Christ! Stop! Stop!
He passed probably within 10 meters of me. I think he was probably in some degree of shock, emotional shock, and also extremely exhausted. And those things might have contributed to him not being able to stop himself.
What the hell is this? One guy died. I came up here to help you guys.
Get down. Get down.
Oh, let's go down.
Pakistani guys. The guy had no energy.
Despite the horrific events taking place beneath the bottleneck, Wilco and most of the other climbers decided to continue their push for the summit.
We talked about it, what should we do? And then we said, yeah, listen, all the Serb climbers are going back, so, we can't, do anything anymore. You are that far on the mountain, that it's very hard to take the decision to going back because, this is K2 and you don't get a second chance. And, so we were thinking, if we reach the summit, just before darkness, we have a headlamp and all the ropes are there, we can make it.
I look up and we still see this lineup of people going up across the traverse. And it's almost 3 o'clock. It's late.
I can't believe they're still going up at this time of day. They're going to be summiting at nightfall, which they did.
At 6 p.m., Wilco and the other climbers finally reached the summit.
It was so nice to be there, and with that weather, And we were so satisfied. We were dancing on the summit, and I was, filming and asking Gerard, "Hey, Ger, where are we?" "We are on the summit of K2. So, it was, and the light was so brilliant. I've never seen that in my life. It was really unbelievable. And then, this curve of the earth, and I don't know how to describe it. It was brilliant.
Maarten, we staan op de top van de K2! Yeah! Gerald, Kas, Temba en ikzelf. Over. Om 6 uur plaatselijke tijd. Over.
There was no sign at all that it would go wrong on the way back, So in our imagination, it was just a matter of 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours, going down.
But Wilco and a number of other climbers didn't make it down to Camp 4 that night.
You know what time we'll get down here? Meeting.
The following morning, Pemba, who had managed to climb down in the dark, said something that made the climbers in Camp 4 prepare for the worst.
Yeah. When we descending from the bottleneck, then I just reached the cooler top section. Then there is nothing. No ice anchor, no rock anchor, no fixed line, nothing.
When Pemba reached the bottleneck, he discovered that the rope had been completely cut off due to ice falls from the Serac. The first ice falls had caused several climbers to tumble to their deaths, including the Norwegian climber Rolf Bae. The missing rope made the climb down to Camp 4 extremely difficult and dangerous. A number of climbers were now stranded close to the summit.
We had to make a decision about whether to stay and assist people coming down or whether to get ourselves off the mountain. And after 48 hours above 8,000 meters, we were all withering away. We were all slowly dying. We had only one bottle of oxygen, had no rope. Even with those things, trying to bring someone down above 8,000 meters is pretty much impossible.
Still a lot of people is missing up the mountain, and we are in Camp 4 at 8,000 meters. We're tired, exhausted. We have to get down. There's not much we can do.
This is not a guided tour. If there were one person up there that we could go up and
4-5 people will do the rescue.
And half a dozen people go up and get down. We cannot do that with 9 people. It's the reality of the situation. We can care for people down here as needed, but we cannot physically butt people off this mountain.
Yeah, we've been 2 nights here already. Spending a 3rd night. I'm not sure if I can get down without oxygen, you know?
We just realized that we don't have the manpower, we don't have the strength to go up there and risk our lives. The thing you can do now is to bring down the people who has survived and get everyone safely back to base camp.
I mean, this theme of death on K2 is unfortunately recurring here. Death during descent. This mountain is notorious for this same scenario, unfortunately.
So we just rappel down the mountain, and it kind of it feels that you're leaving a battleground. You're losing a war. Friends is up there, we lost them, and there's nothing we can do now. It's too late.
Using their last remaining strength, the climbers from Camp 4 headed down to base camp. 11 people had perished on the mountain, but Wilco and several other climbers were still above Camp 4, struggling for their lives.
I got a little bit in panic because I started to get, snow blindness, so I couldn't see clearly anymore. So I said, "Listen, guys, I'm getting to get snowblind. I have to go down immediately." So that's what I did, and because the other guys they want to start looking for this rope, and I didn't have the time anymore. I just went down straight.
We get a phone call from Holland saying Wilco's calling his wife. When people call their wives on a mountain after spending the night out, that's not a good sign. That's a giving up sign. That's I just want to hear my wife's voice one last time.
When she was on the other side of the telephone line, she was actually very quiet because I was saying also quiet. Hey, listen, I'm lost. Don't know where I am, but I survived the bottleneck, and I think I can reach Camp 4, but they have to help me.
But time was running out, and Wilco, separated from the rest of the climbers on the mountain, had to prepare for a second night outside at 8,000 meters.
It was the worst night of my life. I was in a bad shape, in a terrible situation, and I knew that I was fighting against the wind, because this little bit wind was, that was making it so cold.
On August 3rd, Wilco was finally rescued.
The water? Yeah, that'll work.
Several days after setting out to reach the summit, Wilco and his team member Kaz were brought to the tent at base camp, severely frostbitten.
I have to figure out where we slept. Yeah. And I think we slept still above 8,000 meters.
You're shaking a little bit, so.
Wilco here has more involvement with his toes, and Kaz over here has deep frostbite injury of his hands, a little worse than on the left than the right. And we're looking at helicopter evacuation sometime tomorrow morning, and hopefully we'll keep all their digits. I remember Wilco asking about the fate of the others up on the mountain. This was a moment where he was realizing just how poorly the experience had gone for many of the others that had summited. We had to tell him that 11 people were known to be dead.
Some of the Koreans got back from Camp 4 today.
There were many victims there.
Huh?
Many victims already there.
11. 11 people. Mr. Park, Mr. Wong.
But he's missed, or?
No, he's dead. Mr. Hugh, Rolf, Gerard.
After the rescues and after everything, and we're leaving base camp, I felt it was really important for me to go and say goodbye. So on the hike out, on the day we were walking out, I actually walked to the Gilkey Memorial. And I was there by myself, and there's 11 new names.
I remember talking with Cecilia after all this happened and the summit attempt, and after Rolf was killed, and she told me that that day they arrived at Camp 4 together. He said to her that this has to be the most beautiful moment of my life. I think in a nutshell, I think we all felt that it was a moment to be remembered for sure.
When I first went, there were plaques that represented people. Now there were people, and all that was left was plaques. And that was the thing that I really had to come to grips with.